Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We have a stellar lineup for you, as usual. If you have any questions for our panelists during the presentation, you may enter them into the chat or the Q&A boxes, and we'll get to those for you. Or if you're feeling brave, use the raise your hand tool, and I will unmute your line so you can ask it live. And without further ado, I'm turning it over to our MC, Mr. Tom Berkler.
Thank you, Lisa. Welcome on July the 24th. You can rely on that because surveys and studies show that CPS is right about the date at a full 95% of the time. So rely on it. We haven't been with you all for a few weeks. The holiday fourth, some other things have gotten in the way. So I was a little concerned we might have the mo that we need here, but I've gotten to talk to all three of the guests before we got on, and the synapses are firing. And we have ideas today. And so I'm going to start with the person I deemed had the fastest firing synapse despite his old age, Tom Nichols. Tom Nichols, what you got? DIs, you're talking about one of my favorite subjects. You and I like to talk a lot about the fact of the high degree of probability of disability during working life versus the probability of death. And we all the time hear about solutions in the event of death without it spilling over into disability. And one of the overlooked areas that doesn't spill over into is disability insurance planning for buy-sell agreements, succession agreements. So talk to us a little bit about that today and some of your recent experiences.
Well, thanks, Tom. Yes, we do have a couple of really exciting things. I'm going to share a case design with you first of all.
Sure.
But before I get into that, yes, succession planning. We sell a lot of term life insurance here at CPS to fund buy-sell agreements. That's for a business that wants to make sure that they've got the capital should one of the business owners not make it into work one day to buy out their share of the business. And so many advisors fail to recognize the likelihood of one of those business partners getting sick or hurt and not being able to function as a managing partner, whether it be permanently or for a period of time. They don't look into the idea that, hey, maybe I need to fund a buy-sell agreement, because unless I've got a signed salary continuation plan, one of these business owners gets sick or hurt, they're going to have to continue to fund pay them out of and not producing for the business. So what we would typically do is just do a life insurance policy. Let's say he's got $1 million share in the business. We do $1 million term life insurance. We fund $1 million disability with a 365-day waiting period. So after 1 year, that triggers a sale if the business owner gets sick or hurt. So we got thinking about maybe what if he got better after that 1 year. He was forced to sell his share of the business. 18 months later, the guy's ready to go back to work again, doesn't have a company anymore. So what we did was looked at, what about a 2-year elimination period on that disability buyout policy? So what it does, first of all, is reduces the premium by about 30%, which is huge savings right there. And what we can also do is solve a couple other problems. Number one is with the savings, you buy a disability policy that would pay him earnings, income, salary, while he's recuperating. 2-year benefit. So I save 30%. I can buy a disability policy that's going to pay me. So I'm getting better. 18 months later, I'm better. I get back to work. Didn't have to sell my business, still going back to work. And if I'm back to work for 6 months, my policy resets. I got another 2-year benefit. But if I don't get better after 2 years, it's going to trigger a sale of my share of the business. It'll pay the $1 million or sell out at whatever the fair market value is. Ultimately, it's giving them the option to recuperate, make decisions, rather than being forced to sell his shares of the business after 365 days, especially if there is recovery in sight. So that's kind of what we're talking about now. It's more planning and giving more options to the business owners. And yes, talking about the fact that they are more likely to get sick or hurt during their working lifetime than they are to die before they retire. So at the end of the day, we've got a new buy-sell opportunity with a little twist, disability buyout, with a 2-year benefit, and then buy a little 2-year salary continuation, if you will, to set right on top of it. And the premium is actually, it still saves you a little bit, maybe 3 or 4%, but it's still cheaper by pushing that elimination period out for 2 years. So that's my idea for the day.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things underlying what you said is something that's pretty self-evident, and that's the need whenever you're going to talk a disability contingency in a buy-sell and use insurance, be sure to coordinate your timing with regard to your payments under the buy-sell with the payout timings under the policy itself. And what you've done here is, I think come up with a creative way to fund against the second contingency, and that is the person that might come back. A buy-sell in the event of death. Studies show that death is pretty permanent, but disability is an unknown. So Lisa, you put up the contact information for Tom and Steve there if any questions on DI come up and they need help. So thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Got Matt Anderson here. Matt, I don't know, but the great philosopher Socrates. I haven't ever read Socrates. Somebody told me to read Plato, and I thought they were talking about Play-Doh. So I was a little discouraged that it didn't get any further than that. But Socrates said, "It's not the man that knows the answers; it's the man who knows the questions." And this resonated when I mentioned it to you before the show, because you said, Tom, successful LTC is done with the people that know the questions to ask, the tools they need. You're going to tell us how to get into an interview and find out what people need and get them in the right direction through the proper questioning.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. So I always think it's very important to make sure that you have a plan in place, obviously for long-term care, but also a plan in place for how do you talk to a client about long-term care. It's not necessarily something that is laid out. A lot of advisors just try to have the conversation naturally or bring it up when the client brings it up. But I find the major difference between those that are very successful in offering long-term care plans and those that are less successful is, do you have a process in place? And the process should be very, very simple. And I'm just going to walk you through what my process is. If you need help with this, be happy to send you this presentation or talk with you about a process. Or if you're not interested in doing it yourself, we can certainly help you out at CPS. But step one, first meeting, is really making sure that you speak the same language as the client. So before I get into any type of LTC conversation, it's essential that you really address 3 specific questions. What is long-term care? Because I know what it is and I do this every day. A lot of other people don't necessarily know. Second thing to address, what are actually the cost of care? What are those costs today? What are those costs in the future? Establishing a need for a plan because the cost can be extensive. And then finally, how do you put a plan in place, right? What are the different options as far as long-term care is concerned? So I'm not going to cover this presentation with everyone today, but it just goes through specifically those 3 questions. It addresses it. It talks about what LTC is, what's not LTC, what's the cost of care today, what's the cost of care in the future, and then what are the various options as far as LTC planning are concerned. Once you have that conversation with the client to address those 3 questions, you're now speaking the same language and you can move forward with a couple of different options. From here, I usually will show just a basic, maybe traditional plan and a hybrid plan, or maybe a hybrid plan with a life with an LTC rider. I'll try to pick 2 that I think may resonate with the client, give them an idea of what it's going to cost and how those specific policies work. After that, always ask for that second meeting. Let's find the time that we can, schedule a second meeting where we can, do a recap of what I've provided here today, where we can revise any numbers if needed, and then finally respond to any questions that they may have. So it's always a 2-step process, 2-step meeting, sales concept. First, establish the same language, give them an idea of how these different types of plans work, and then asking for that second meeting where you can revise the numbers and revise the proposals based on what their initial thoughts are on those options that you put together. Those that don't have a plan and just kind of stumble through this, it's a difficult conversation to have. And Those that maybe don't do LTC on a regular basis, I find that having a process and a roadmap to follow makes a world of difference in overall success. That's all I got,
Matt,
Tom.
yeah, Matt, you and I, we talk about this a lot. And, one of the things that you emphasized long ago with me, but that continues to resonate in these talks with prospects for long-term care is the fact that people not only want to make sure they're taken care of, they want to choose where they're taken care of. And when we get over into Medicaid opportunities, any government programs, or lesser qualified alternatives than what your department offers, you don't have the choice to get taken care of in your home. And those options are open. Am I correct with your personal coverage?
Well, I mean, you always have the option to pay out of pocket, right? But the fact of the matter is, if you need care, the cost of care at home, not covered by Medicare, it's fairly extensive, right? Could easily dollars could easily be 5 to, well, if you need 24-hour, it could be up to 20,000 a month, right? And so unless you have a plan in place, or unless you have vast resources, you're likely not going to get care at home, and you're likely going to be in a skilled nursing environment, which most people try to avoid, right? If possible.
Yeah. I know that I've avoided it successfully so far. Second point you bring up sometimes too, Matt, that I appreciate, and that is the appeal of LTC to the second generation market. The study that Tom Nichols and I referred to earlier, that death tends to be rather permanent. It also doesn't require care for the person that died after they're gone. Not the case with morbidity, not the case with long-term care. And there's an appeal there for the second generation to sit and help provide for the generation ahead of them, because they know a lot of the responsibilities are going to fall into their lap, along with the economic responsibility in many cases. So am I right there? That is a healthy market to look into as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any closing thoughts there, Matt?
Give us a call. We can certainly help. We can put plans in place. The more information we have about the client, the better we can do our job. But that's really what we specialize in doing, is putting something together that fits the client's budget, fits the client's situation, and finding out how to creatively put a plan in place for that particular client.
Thank you, Matt. And we've got your contact information up as well. We're going to have Matt Gandy on next with the life department, but Matt recently got back from a trip where he ran before the Bulls at Pamplano, and he didn't show up today. So Lisa Navarro is, as we speak, checking to see how successful he was with regard to his run. And we'll get back to you with the news before this broadcast is over. Seth Trickle, how's it going, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking, Tom. So just living the dream out here in California, my home office overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. So
yeah, and there's a point to that. You all have read that, as soon as they get done painting the Golden Gate Bridge, they turn around and do it again. They're always painting it.
Yep.
And Seth put that up because when you got out of college, Seth, you helped paint the Golden Gate Bridge, did you not? And you started at the top of that first tower. That's where they happened to be the day. Yeah. Well,
I'm not afraid of heights at all.
Yeah, maybe as a less risky venture, you should have gone and run ahead of the Bulls at Pamplano there. So,
oh yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, Seth, don't want to take up too much time because it's really kind of things are hopping in the annuity market with the interest rates, and actually, you've been busy, and so there's much to be said about the opportunity of annuities in a investment portfolio, especially when we begin to compare them against stock and bond of alternatives, which for several years now have had much more appeal with regard to the possibility of return than with annuities. But that's changing now, and you want to demonstrate a little bit to us the effectiveness of having an annuity in your portfolio.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to try to share my screen here. Can you guys see my screen now?
It's up.
Okay, great. So what I wanted to do on this call is keep it short and sweet. I wanted to start with just some simplistic information on why we even want to own an annuity in the first place in a portfolio. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make as financial professionals sometimes is we have a tendency to jump right to the product. before we really articulate clearly why the product should even be looked at in the first place. So why an annuity, right? And we understand that in the context of the current market environment and put this in historical context. So one of the things with investors is they tend to not make good decisions when they're investing their own money, right? So the purpose of this slide that I showed you here is that the average performance over the last 30 years, the S&P 500 is about 9.96%. That's just if you bought directly into the index, that's what it would have done. But you can see here on the screen that the average investor only actually returns 5.04%. That's a difference of almost 5%. Because what do clients do? They always sell out at the wrong times, right? When things get crazy and things are going south, they sell out. That's actually the exact time they should be buying, right? So they make poor investment decisions. Now, what I wanted to do is talk about this in the context of clients that are going to be heading into retirement. So I have a simplistic example here. So let's assume that we have $500,000 to invest from our retirement portfolio. Client is age 65. And so what they want to do is they want to immediately start withdrawing about 5% of their portfolio. General rule of thumb, safe withdrawal rates without outliving your money tends to be around 4 or 5% on average. So what we did here was we took $25,000 a year. So that would be 5% of that 500,000. Now we have two different scenarios here. We have Adam, who decided to retire in 1995 during the roaring, period of the stock market in the 90s. And we have Bill, who unfortunately tried to retire in 2000, right there in the dot-com bubble. And what you'll see here is that starting with those $25,000 withdrawals on Adam's portfolio, the first 3 years, the market was booming, right? So he was actually up 111.3% even after taking out withdrawals. Bill, on the other hand, he retired in 2000 when the market took a bath. And so his portfolio, just in the first 3 years alone, was down 40%. So if you look at further out in time, because of that huge dent in the portfolio for Bill right off the bat when he was taking money out, his portfolio only grew 39.66%, and he's only left with $27,699. He almost ran out of money just in 16 years. Whereas Adam, who timed it right, got lucky, he ended up with $834,355. That is a huge difference. So there's a huge risk, and this is what's called sequence of return risk is, when you want to retire, right? But you can't determine what's going on in the stock market. You can't choose that, right? The market is doing whatever it's doing. So what we need to look at is providing investors a level of certainty in their portfolios. We don't want to take all this risk on, right? So we want to figure out a solution where we can withdraw money, but we know that there's no risk of outliving our money. And that's exactly what the annuity is going to solve for. And I think to my point there about, trying to find the shiny object, the annuity, the one with all the bells and whistles and features, for me, it's simplistic, right? We just want to simply find the one that has the best withdrawal rate. So in this example, it's a 5% withdrawal rate that you're taking, but you're still fully subject to market risk, right? You can hit a home run like Adam did, you can get lucky, or you can really lose out like Bill did and run out of money. So by the time he's, 81 years old, he's out of money, and he may live another 10 years. He has no money coming in. He has nothing left. What the annuity is going to solve for is it's going to pay you a higher payout rate at a guaranteed rate. And right now we have a top product that has a 7.6% payout factor for someone that's age 65. And that'll pay you income for the rest of your life, which is very significant. So even if your account value goes to zero, you will still continually be getting that 7.6 withdrawal factor, which in this example on $500,000 would be $38,000 a year. So $13,000 a year more than Adam and Bill were getting with zero risk to principal. That's a phenomenal story right now. And if you put that in context to where interest rates are at with single premium immediate annuities, those actually historically used to have better rates than these index annuities with income riders, which is the product that I'll mention when we're done. But the single premium immediate annuity right now, our highest payout factor for this example in the state of California is only 6.8%. And the whole downside of the single premium immediate annuity is the fact that you are giving up access to your cash value. Whereas with the index annuity with the income rider, you're still getting your $38,000 a year. You have your cash value, but that is getting reduced each year over year on your withdrawals. However, even when that goes to zero, you still get that 38,000, which is very nice. And the caveat to the index annuity, though, is each year you still have the ability to offset some of those withdrawals with interest credits. And the product that we have access to through Guaranteed Income Life, it's called the Wealth Choice 10. And they have an S&P 500 cap rate at 10.75%. So I'll give you an example. In the first year, let's say you had $100,000 invested and you're trying to take that 7.6% withdrawal. If you hit the cap rate, if the market actually has a good year, you wouldn't even see a reduction in your principal. You'll take your 7.6% withdrawal and you got 10.75 on your cash position. So you actually still grew your account a little bit. The nice thing is, let's say the very next year it goes to, the market goes down 20%. You don't lose anything. So what happens is you just take that 7.6% withdrawal in the second year, and your account is just reduced by that value because you don't actually take part in any of the downside risks to the market. So if you want to hear more about this strategy, you can certainly follow up with me, and I can email everybody the same presentation too, because this is one of the best ones I've seen that it just really talks about why annuities before you even ever get into a hypothetical illustration. If you're not having this conversation, you're not going to have as much success. But if you start with this and build the foundation of why an annuity, why today, you're going to get investors more interested in taking a look at annuities. And I can do all the work behind the scenes for you on finding the best annuities in the marketplace today. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Tom.
I've listened to the presentation there, and what you said with regard to the return, I think you said 7 point something percent. It's interesting to me that the conclusions that were drawn from the S&P performance, where people were taking it in and out at the wrong time, were in the range of 5%. I know it's market to market, maybe apples to oranges, but what we've got are guaranteed rates right now, which are better than people trying to outperform the market with their withdrawals and their additions back and forth.
Yeah, 7.6% guaranteed on your money while still having access to your cash value position. I mean, that we haven't seen anything like that in a long time. And if interest rates here, like they're talking about, are going to go down, this is a time to be looking at this type of product and locking your investors in to a guaranteed income stream for the rest of their life, at least on a portion of their assets.
Yeah.
So they have that stability in the rock in their portfolio. So maybe they can get aggressive on the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw Michelle ask for a copy of the report too. Anybody else, if you'd like a copy of that, or Tom's materials, or excuse me, Matt's that he had as well, do that. Lisa, do we have any questions in the box?
We do not have any questions today.
All right, thank you. Well, gentlemen, thank you. Thanks for coming back and being ready. And of course, we remind our listeners today that like we like to say here, that a bad day at CPS is still better than a good day anywhere else. So give us a call. Let us help you out. Gentlemen, thank you. Lisa, take us out of here.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Look out for our next invitation in a few weeks. Thank you so much, folks.